Hi, travelers. You are with Anou's YouTube channel. Let's explore the beauty of Cameroon today. Lake Nyos in Cameroon is one of the world's rare crater lakes that produced a deadly limnic eruption when a sudden release of carbon dioxide in 1986 suffocated nearby villages. Do you know Lake Oku harbors the only known population of the tiny Lake Oku clawed frog, a species found nowhere else on Earth. Tumbles over a basalt escarpment into braided cataracts that host mist-fed microforests, rare on Earth, do you know? Menchum Falls shelters endemic dragonflies and fish that evolved in isolated spray pools, unseen by science until recently. Local Mafumti and Kam. Oral histories speak of a river spirit that carved terraces and guided seasonal fishing, preserving banks and sacred places for generations. The constant spray creates vertical gardens of orchids and mosses clinging to wet rock faces, ecosystems measured in inches, yet astonishingly rich in life. Geologists say volcanic layers here were scoured into amphitheaters, and the river's slow work made shelves where waterfalls split and recombine in ever-shifting ribbons. Biologists find tiny niches where new insects and amphibians persist, species adapted to the waterfall's unique microclimate. In dry months, the falls braid into crossing stones used by villagers, while in rains it becomes a thunderous wall that reshapes floodplains and local seasons. Menchum's waters feed larger river networks, connecting highland cloud forests to distant lowland wetlands and demonstrating Cameroon's hidden hydrological threads and life eons. Threats loom from upstream, mining and logging that could alter flow patterns and erase the delicate microhabitats before they are fully cataloged or protected. Local stewardship and sacred grove practices offer a model of protection that predates formal conservation, linking customary law with practical ecology. Mentum is more than spectacle. It is a living laboratory where geology, folklore, and fragile species meet on a base-out stage, written by time from here. The river winds toward the Bamenda Highlands, and the next scene traces those cloud forest corridors that stitch together Cameroon's wild heart. We will enter those spray forests, speak with river guardians, and search for creatures no scientist has named yet. The story of Menchum asks a simple question: can these small secret places survive long enough for us to learn from them? Long Crater Lake sits in a near-perfect volcanic basin in Cameroon's western highlands, one of the few African crater lakes whose rim supports ancient montane forest. Do you know Melong? Crater Lake is fed largely by subterranean springs that keep its surface remarkably still, reflecting cloud and forest like a polished mirror. Local fishermen speak of ghostly mists that rise from the water at dawn, carrying legends of spirits and lost villages that once clustered on the rim. Those stories are intertwined with hard sonnets. Sediment cores reveal centuries of volcanic pulses, and sudden climatic shifts recorded in layered ash. A narrow path from the town of Melong snakes up through banana terraces, and eucalyptus stands opening onto a rim trail that circles the blue-green bowl. Along that loop, you can trace how human life and volcano forged each other, from ancient terraced fields to colonial-era tea plantations that cling to the slopes. Beneath the surface, the lake shelters tiny, endemic fish and unusual aquatic plants, found nowhere else in Cameroon. Species adapted to the crater's calm, oxygen-rich waters. Scientists who come here map genetic isolates and study how isolation creates microecosystems, lessons that echo across island biogeography worldwide. From the rim-distant peaks like Mount Maninguba and the twin lakes of Moninguba appear like sentinels linking Melong to the broader chain of highland volcanics. That visual connection is literal too. Underground hydrology ties these basins together, sending water and nutrients along hidden routes beneath the highlands. Visiting Melong is both intimate and instructive. You learn to read the land by its vegetation bands, bird calls, and the way light shifts across the crater at midday. Each step carries you from human stories into geological time, and from the glassy lake surface to the deep, slow forces that shaped Cameroon's spine. Photographers and naturalists linger for hours, watching kingfishers and herons, and for the rare chance to glimpse sunbeams, striking submerged limestone and illuminating the lake floor. Local guides will point out medicinal plants along the trail, remedies passed down through generations that tie community survival to crater ecology. As dusk falls, smoke from village kitchens mixes with lake vapor, and the crater seems to breathe, a living archive of culture, geology, and the fragile balance of life here. Understanding Malong Crater Lake means recognizing how small landscapes can hold immense stories, and why conservation here ripples outward to Cameroon's entire highland mosaic. Mount Cameroon rises almost directly, from the Gulf of Guinea to about 440 meters, one of the rare places on Earth where an active volcano towers over tropical coastal rainforest. Do you know, Mount Cameroon has sent lava flows that reach the sea, carving new land and changing the coastline within living memory. From banana groves and cocoa farms at the low slopes to mist-shrouded heath near the summit, the mountain compresses whole ecological worlds into just a few kilometers. That vertical stack of habitats supports plants, frogs, and butterflies found nowhere else on the planet. Every year, the Mount Cameroon Race of Hope forces ordinary villagers and elite athletes alike to sprint up and down an active volcano, the Cano, a spectacle that reads like a myth made real. Locals call the mountain mango, Ma and Demi, and weave its eruptions into origin stories, funeral rites, and harvest calendars. Hiking its paths, you pass ancient lava fields, black, glassy surfaces pocked with fresh green pioneer plants, then plunge into cathedral-like scenes of giant ferns and impassable vines. Above 3,000 meters, the air cools, winds sharpen, and grasses and low shrubs fold into a fragile, alpine pine world clinging to volcanic rock. Scientists prize Mount Cameroon as a living laboratory for evolution because isolation plus rapid habitat shifts create species that adapt faster than on more stable mountains. You can still find rare orchids and brightly colored frogs that exist only on these slopes, their survival balanced on the mountain's mood. The volcano's last significant eruptions are recent enough that villagers recall night skies red with lava and fields buried under black ash. Those eruptions also built the extraordinarily fertile soils that sustain rich farms and dense human cultures along the lower flanks. To climb Mount Cameroon is to walk through time, ancient eruptions, colonial rubber stations, wartime supply routes, and contemporary ecotourism converge on single tracks. By the time you reach the crater rim, the ocean's line is visible on the horizon, a reminder that here, the planet's fire and sea meet in one view. Yet the mountain is fragile. Logging agriculture on steep slopes and unregulated tourism threaten the microhabitats that evolved in isolation. Understanding Mount Cameroon means listening to both geologists and elders, because only their combined stories reveal how this volcanic giant shaped people, biodiversity, and the coastline itself. The Incom River slices through Cameroon's primeval rainforest, forming the Incom Falls, an iron-walled thunderous drop that few rivers so close to the Gulf can boast. Do you know the falls on the Incom River were chosen as the jungle backdrop for the 1984 film Greystoke, a detail that turned a remote cascade into a cinematic legend? Beyond the cinema lore, the Incom keeps secrets. Braided channels that vanish into limestone caves and re-emerge as bubbling springs, a pattern that locals have used to predict floods for generations. These hidden underflows nourish a mosaic of swamps and gallery forests that feeds downstream communities and links the highlands to the coastal mangroves. On its banks, artisanal fishermen still use carved pirogues and decades-old fish traps shaped to the river's seasonal pulse. The river's rhythm shapes village life, from market days to the timing of yam harvests, forging a cultural corridor that connects interior farms with port towns on the littoral. Biologists arriving to study the Incom are often startled by tiny, endemic frogs and plant species clinging to the spray zone at the falls, species found nowhere else on Earth. That concentrated biodiversity becomes a bridge to nearby reserves, where forest, elephants, and primates trace the same watercourse across county lines. Conservationists warn that upstream logging and unregulated sand mining could erode both the falls, dramatic cliffs, and the river's fragile biodiversity. Local cooperatives are now experimenting with community LED patrols and ecotourism guides who emphasize small group treks to the economical site instead of mass development. Follow the Incom, and it will lead you quietly but insistently to other Cameroonian wonders, cocoa terraces, volcanic plateaus, and the mangrove labyrinth that meets the Gulf of Guinea. In that way, the river is less a single destination than a living thread that stitches the interior highlands to the Atlantic edge, carrying stories, species, and commerce along its banks. To stand at the lip of the falls is to be held between two worlds: the ancient secretive heart of the forest and the bustling tide of modern Cameroon. And once you start tracing the income's course, you realize each bend hides another story, waiting to be followed downstream. Janga and Gogo Reserve harbors one of the world's last intact gallery forests, where riverine islands support endemic orchids and rare palm species. Do you know in Jangun, Gogo Reserve shelters a sleeping network of swamp forests that act as seasonal highways for forest elephants and rare primates it mates. Mist rises over braided channels at dawn, as otters slip through reeds and ebony trees bend toward the water. Local Baka communities say the trees remember old migrations, and their stories map corridors that link Nyangangoko to the Sanga River basin and beyond. This living map connects to Lobéké and the Jaw Fauna Reserve, creating one of Central Africa's most vital conservation mosaics. Migratory birds, like the yellow-billed stork, move along these chains, following fish pulses and fruiting seasons. Conservationists have discovered isolated populations of dukers and pangolins using riverine ridges as stepping stones between forest blocks. Every flood reshapes the landscape, depositing fertile silt while uncovering archaeological traces of ancient riverine camps. Scientists have recorded orchids here that bloom only after major floods, timed to the memory of the river's rhythms. Researchers suspect these flood-triggered blooms are synchronized across the Sanga corridor, hinting at ecological communication on a landscape scale. Community rangers patrol canoe routes, blending traditional knowledge with GPS devices to safeguard corridors and to monitor illegal logging. Their work has prevented incursions and preserved fish, spawning grounds that feed both people and wildlife. So, hidden clearings reveal Kapok and Iroko, that tower above the canopy, each hosting bats and insects. Night surveys there have turned up bioluminescent fungi and fireflies that paint the dark like drifting constellations. Conservation projects now aim to link ecotourism in Jungle Goko with sustainable markets in nearby towns, offering incentives to preserve corridor forests. If successful, this model could strengthen ties across regional, protected areas and provide blueprints for transboundary conservation. Perched in a volcanic crater near the summit of Mount Oku, Lake Oku is one of the few high-altitude crater lakes in the world, fed only by rain and cloud forest seepage. Do you know Lake Oku is the sole home of the Lake Oku clawed frog, Xenopus longia species found nowhere else on Earth. Its dark mirror like water reflects a ring of ancient montane forest that nurtures rare plants and insects. The lake's isolation created evolutionary experiments. Tiny creatures adapted in ways scientists still puzzle over. Local Kham communities regard the lake as sacred and traditional. Taboos once forbade fishing and bathing in its waters. Those customs, combined with the rugged terrain, helped shield its fragile ecosystem for generations. But the wider Kilum Ijim forest that cradles Lake Oku has faced logging and agricultural pressure. For decades, conservationists and villagers now work together to restore forest corridors and protect the lake's watershed. You can trace a living link from the misty canopy down to the lake. Orchids, lichens, and endemic butterflies depend on that continuity. That chain of life also supports the famed Oku, white honey harvested sustainably from bees that forage the cloud forest. Scientists visiting Lake Oku measure DNA, water chemistry, and frog calls, searching for clues about isolation and resilience. Every discovery raises new questions, like whether undiscovered, micro-endemic species hide in the lake's murky depths. The crater rim offers sweeping views toward neighboring peaks and the patchwork of terraces, where villagers grow potatoes and coffee. Those cultivated slopes are the human chapters in Lake Oku's story, linked to the mountain springs and seasonal rains. Protecting Lake Oku means protecting traditions, livelihoods in the cloud forest lifeline that supplies downstream communities. It's a fragile balance, one where local knowledge and modern science must act together to keep the lake alive. In the end, Lake Oku is more than a singular place. It's a living laboratory of evolution, culture, and conservation. To understand Cameroon's highlands, you must listen to the quiet languages of its lakes, starting with Lake Oku. From Lake Oku, the trail descends toward the Bamenda Highlands, where rivers born here feed fertile valleys below. Follow those waterways, and you'll see how one small crater lake shapes livelihoods and landscapes across an entire region. Gibus eclipse rice in Cameroon has a near vertical wall of basalt, whose interlocking columns form one of the planet's rare natural water funnels, directing monsoon torrents into hidden caverns. Do you know that Jabalsi cliffs create a persistent mineral mist that feeds hanging gardens of ferns and orchids, clinging to sheer rock faces? From a distance, the cliffs look like stacked black organs, but up close, the stone reveals veins of listus, green and silver, where wet seasons leach metals into intricate patterns. Within those veins, scientists have cataloged plant species found nowhere else, tiny endemics that survive only in the cooled spray, and shaded crevices. Birds that refuse lowland heat nest in fissures, their calls echoing through the clefts and carrying seeds that knit together living carpets on impossible ledges. Local guides tell of orchids that bloom for days after being misted by underground springs, a seasonal miracle time to the high rains. For centuries, the Bakaka and neighboring peoples have regarded the cliffs as a threshold between worlds, carving narrow footpaths and leaving offerings in cave mouths. Those cave mouths open into subterranean rivers that, according to elders, run on to meet coastal estuaries. An underground journey that binds mountain to sea. Geologically, the cliffs are the remnant of ancient lava flows and uplift their hexagonal columns, the fingerprint of an extraordinary cooling event millions of years ago. Eco-guides emphasize slow travel here, teaching visitors how each step can protect tiny orchids or preserve ancestral altars tucked in rock hollows. At dawn, the columns catch light, and the cliff faces glow like smelted metal, while at dusk, the mineral air carries a taste you will not forget. Is it iron salt and wild herb? But there is a secret the locals rarely revealed to first-time visitors. A secluded pool at the cliff's heart that reflects stars even by daylight and is said to hold stories of vanished rivers, Over the next segment, we'll follow one guide into that pool's shadow to uncover the rituals, the science, and the fragile balance that keeps Jibase alive. And then we will trace the water's path from cliff to coast, showing how this single escarpment threads together Cameroon's landscapes and stories. Waza National Park in northern Cameroon harbors one of the rare savanna flood, where seasonal waters reshape landscapes. Do you know as shallow pans swell into ephemeral lakes after the rains, turning grasslands into temporary wetlands that attract herds and birds? Elephants and KOB gather by the dozens, while lions and hyenas patrol reed beds. The park is a refuge for Sahelian species, at the southern edge of the Sahara, hosting migrants scarce elsewhere. Bird life explodes after the rains, with pelicans, storks, and migrants lining flooded channels, and raptors riding thermals above. Waza's mix of grassland scrub and marsh supports predators and grazers in a seasonal rhythm. Pastoralists and rangers maintain a fragile balance, where livestock tracks meet wildlife trails. Human pressures poaching and altered water flows from upstream irrigation have reshaped the park's ecology. Still, community initiatives, anti-poaching patrols, and targeted habitat restoration have kept key populations viable, making Waza a conservation focal point. Visitors who time their trips for the end of the rains see dramatic animal concentrations and flooded savanna. Game drives and boat trips reveal hippos wallowing in shallow pools, crocodiles slipping between sedge clumps, and nocturnal life stirring at dusk. Local guides read the land like a map, predicting movements from drifting pans and new green shoots. Waza's story is about wildlife and resilience, ecosystems that rebound, and people adapting to shifting water. Protecting Waza also matters for the wider Lake Chad, Chad Basin, and regional hydrology. Leaving Wasa's shimmering plains, we head toward the shrinking waters of Lake Chad and the communities clinging to its margins. Conservationists study Waza to learn how to balance water management, grazing, and wildlife corridors across a changing soil. Endok Plain contains one of the world's rarest highland marsh mosaics, interlaced with crater lakes and ancient basalt flows. Do you know Endoplain sun? Baked hollows hide peat soils that preserve pollen records stretching back millennia. Here, villagers still follow seasonal rhythms, shaped by invisible groundwater, fed from Mount Bambutos and the high Bamenda Plateau. The plain's patchwork of farms, wetlands, and grassy ridges forms a living map of human and volcanic history. On foggy mornings, migratory birds gather over in Dope's shallow lakes, In numbers that rival better-known wetlands, walkers can cross fields where endemic orchids push through rich, volcanic loam next to millet terraces' feces. Local elders point to lines of ancient terraces that lead the eye toward Oku and the ring of dormant cones. Those cones once funneled lava and ash into basins that cooled into today's fertile soils. Indok is not just agricultural heartland. It's a corridor linking Mount Oku's cloud forest to the Bamenda grasslands. That connectivity sustains rare amphibians and butterflies found nowhere else on the continent. Beneath the surface, a web of springs supports small fisheries and seasonal rivers, feeding into the Wirago and Nyumbu systems. During violent rainy seasons, those channels rearrange the landscape, carving new meanders and nourishing floodplain pastures. Listen closely, and you'll hear oral histories about volcanic thunder and the first settlers planting yams in the cooled ash. Those stories match geological clues that scientists are only now beginning to decode with core samples. Visiting Indok reveals living continuity. Farmers rotating crops, where millennia of eruptions have built resilience. And walking the ridgelines, you follow paths that once linked ritual sites, grazing grounds, and hidden springs. The plain's subtle colors and quiet water bodies mask astonishing biodiversity and deep time records essential to understanding Cameroon's ecological past. Later in this film, we'll trace how Endo's waters shaped nearby lakes and influenced settlement patterns across the Western Highlands. Mount Bambutos's cloud-kissed caldera hosts one of the rare equatorial montane peatlands that act like living sponges. Do you know, Mount Bambutos hides seasonal crater basins and seepage springs that sustain rivers flowing into distant valleys. Rising to nearly 2,700 meters, the massif is a rugged mosaic of grassy plateaus, eroded lava flows, and mist forests. Local farmers carve terraces into the slopes and plant tea potatoes and coffee beneath the sky that rarely warms above a mild chill. Under the mist, endemic frogs and insect species cling to microhabitats found nowhere else on the continent. Botanists have identified mosses and orchids on its slopes that were unknown until the late 20th century. But Bambutos is not just biodiversity. It is a living water tower whose peat soils regulate floods downstream when deforestation and overgrazing bite into that sponge. Whole communities below face reduced dry season flows and intensified erosion. Hidden caves and sinkholes beneath bamboos have long-fed legends of spirits and secret springs that heal the sick. Modern researchers now map these underground waterways to understand how the massive buffers water to lowland farms. If we follow a swollen stream down the slope, it will lead us into terraced fields and marketplaces, where mountain crops reach coastal cities. That journey reveals how a single mountain shapes climates, economies, and rituals across regions. Most visitors never link back to a summit. In the coming segments, we'll trace Bambuto's hidden peatlands, meet the people fighting erosion, and explore surprising wildlife rediscovered by scientists. You will see how restoration projects stitch fragmented forests back together, connecting Bambutos to the wider highland corridor and securing water for millions. Lake Nyos in Cameroon is one of only 3 known limnic eruption-prone lakes on Earth, holding a deadly, trapped sea of carbon dioxide. Beneath its placid surface, do you know that Lake Nyos unleashed an invisible CO2 cloud in 1980s-60s that flowed down valleys and asphyxiated over 117 people and thousands of livestock overnight? Beneath Neptune's mirror-like surface, cold, dense water traps immense volumes of CO2, released from magma deep below, creating a time bomb of dissolved gas. That hidden pressure can and did erupt when a disturbance, perhaps a landslide or overturning of layers, release the gas in a single catastrophic pulse. The crater itself sits within the Cameroon volcanic line, a chain of volcanoes stretching from the Gulf of Guinea onto the African continent. Its steep walls and the ring of basaltic rock tell a story of violent eruptions and the slow sculpting of the landscape by fire and water. In the aftermath of 1986, scientists and engineers installed degassing tubes that siphon gas from the depths and safely diffuse it into the atmosphere. Together, these 2 crater lakes map a geological fault line of danger and discovery that drew geologists from across the globe. Scientists continue to monitor gas levels, water temperature, and seismic activity, turning NEOs into a living laboratory. for understanding limnic eruptions, conservationists link the crater to the Kilim Ejum forest on Mount Oku, where protecting watersheds helps stabilize slopes and reduce trigger risks. As we leave the silent rim of Nios, its dark mirror reflecting clouds and memory, the landscape points uphill toward Mount Okus, cloud forest, and the next chapter of this volcanic story. Persepit soils, endemic birds and cooler rains form a fragile network that both depends on and protects these volcanic waters. Amberi Valley is one of the world's rare seasonal floodplains, where dry savanna transforms into a mosaic of lakes and reed islands each rainy season. Do you know Amberi Valley becomes a migratory magnet, drawing thousands of birds and dozens of large mammals to its temporary lagoons every year? Beneath that shifting water lies an ancient network of channels and peat that stores carbon. On a scale usually seen in tropical peatlands, local cattle herders, migratory elephants, and secretive Sitatungas time their movements to the valley's pulse, creating a choreography that few outsiders witness. In the dry months, grassy plains carpet the valley and predators follow, turning shallow pools into pivotal hunting grounds. Fisher communities build ephemeral camps on raised humps of earth, living by rhythms that blur the line between land and water. The Umbari seasonal lakes also act as living laboratories for scientists studying resilience and climate variability. In Central Africa, their studies suggest the valley's floods buffer downstream rivers, linking ecosystems here to distant basins and even to livelihoods beyond Cameroon's borders. Walk with a guide, and you may find ancient fishing traps, carved wooden canoes, and stories that map human adaptation over centuries. Or you might hear the hollow calls of the black-crowned crane echoing from papyrus reed beds as the sun sinks low. From the valley's edges, the landscape folds into Miambo woodlands, and then into higher ploughs, a corridor that connects Umbria to Cameroon's highlands. And northern Sahel, that corridor has long been a migration highway, linking the valley to markets, pastoral routes, and cultural crossroads across the region. Conservationists now argue that protecting Mumber is protecting a living junction, a place where water, wildlife, and people converge. Their efforts combine traditional knowledge with satellite mapping to time grazing, fishing and protection zones in harmony with the floods. Yet pressures are rising upstream irrigation, unregulated grazing and changing rainfall threaten the very flood pulse that defines the valley. What happens here could ripple outward, altering bird migrations, fish stocks, and the livelihoods of communities for hundreds of kilometers. To witness Berry at its peak is to see a landscape that refuses static definition, a place shaped by motion and seasonal generosity. And as you follow the water's path, you begin to understand how this valley threads through Cameroon's larger tapestry of rivers, mountains, and plains. In the next Say segment, we will trace that thread from umbrous reed islands toward the rugged Mandara chain and the plateaus beyond, revealing hidden ties between placid shores. Stay with us and discover how the valley's pulse sets the rhythm for the landscapes that follow. As the sun sets behind Mount Cameroon's smoking summit, the mosaic of landscapes we've explored settles into one memory. From the surf-smooth sands of Kribi to the mist-draped plateaus of Bamenda, every corner has held its own secret. We traced rivers that carve rainforests into emerald cathedrals at Tisha and watched elephants drink at Waza salt pans. We followed the thunder of Ikomakom Falls and the lullaby of Lake Aussie's shoreline, each place offering a different rhythm of life. In Fumban, the craftspeople reminded us that history is kept in wood and pigment, while Limba's volcanic coast stitched island life to colonial past. Across markets and mountaintops, the languages and flavors braided together, proving that diversity here is not merely tolerated, it thrives. And though borders and names may divide maps, the flow of river, trade, and ritual ties these places into a single, living portrait. If you leave with one memory, let it be this: Cameroon refuses to be simple, demanding that you slow down and listen. It will surprise you, unsettle you, and ultimately invite you to return with new questions. So let this journey be less of an ending and more of an opening, an invitation to keep following the trails. Hope you enjoyed the journey with us. Thank you for watching the video. Subscribe and share, please. See you soon in another video, and goodbye.